All right, so picture this. It's Thursday, March 27th, 2025, and we're in Chennai, right in the heart of the Tamil Nadu Assembly. The atmosphere is electric, there's a real buzz in the air, and all eyes are on Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. He's not just introducing a regular resolution, this one's got some serious weight behind it. He's calling on the central government to completely scrap the Waqf Amendment Bill of 2024.
Yeah, and this isn't just some minor legislative tweak. It's stirring up a whole hornet's nest of controversy and debate, and it really boils down to the core issue of Waqf properties. Now, for folks who might not be totally familiar with the term, we're talking about lands or buildings that have been dedicated for religious or charitable purposes under Islamic law. They're managed by these bodies called Waqf boards.
It's kind of like, imagine if you had this incredibly valuable family heirloom, something passed down through generations, holds a ton of meaning for everyone. Suddenly, someone comes along and proposes to change how it's looked after, maybe even who gets to make decisions about it. You can see why that would cause some friction.
Exactly. And what's really striking is the near-unanimous reaction within the Tamil Nadu Assembly. It wasn't just Stalin's party. Almost every single political group, even the main opposition, the AIADMK, they all lined up to support his demand. The only exception, the BJP. They weren't having any of it. In fact, they staged a walkout. Their representative, Vanathi Srinivasan, made quite the dramatic exit, which just goes to show that this isn't just partisan politics at play here. There's something much deeper going on.
So let's dive into the heart of the matter, shall we? What exactly is it about this bill that's causing such a huge uproar?
Well, a good place to start is with Stalin's own words, because he didn't mince them. He straight up declared this bill a disaster for the Muslim community. Talk about a strong opening statement.
Wow, yeah, that's not pulling any punches. He went on to accuse the central government of basically blindsiding the Muslim community, calling it a sneak attack on religious freedom and even a slap in the face to the Constitution. Those are pretty serious allegations.
They really are. He's basically arguing that this bill goes against the fundamental principles of religious freedom that are enshrined in the Constitution. He believes it undermines the autonomy of religious groups to manage their own affairs, which is a pretty big deal.
One of the things that really seems to be sticking in his craw is this whole issue of government control.
Ah, yes, that's a key point.
Oh.
Stalin's arguing that this bill gives the central government way too much power over both the Central Waqf Council and the state Waqf boards. Essentially, he's saying they're trying to strip these institutions of their independence and put the government in the driver's seat. He even used this analogy. Imagine the central government acting like some kind of all-powerful overlords, making decisions without any regard for local context.
It's like that feeling of someone barging into your house and telling you how to run things, right? You can see why that wouldn't sit well with folks. And what's even more worrying is that there's a clause in this bill that could allow the government to just claim a property as its own, even if it's been historically recognized as a Waqf property.
Yeah, imagine the government just showing up with a bunch of paperwork and saying, okay, this mosque is ours now.
Yeah.
It completely disregards the history, the community's connection to the space.
Speaking of things that don't make a lot of sense, there's this 5-year rule that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Basically, this bill says that someone has to have practiced Islam for at least 5 years before they can declare a property as Waqf. Now, why on earth would there be such a specific requirement?
Well, it certainly raises some eyebrows. One could maybe speculate that the government might claim this is to prevent, frivolous or insincere declarations.
But as Stalin pointed out, this could backfire spectacularly. What about those historical Waqf properties that were established by people who may not have been Muslim themselves, but who wanted to support a Muslim charitable cause? This rule could end up invalidating those long-standing endowments.
Absolutely. It could completely disrupt the historical continuity of how these properties have been managed and dedicated.
And then there's the proposal to add 2 non-Muslim members to each state Waqf board. On the surface, you might think, okay, more representation, that's a good thing, right? But Stalin sees this as a blatant intrusion into Muslim religious affairs. I actually love the analogy he used. It's like having a vegan judging a biryani contest.
Right. It just highlights that potential disconnect, like having someone who isn't deeply familiar with Islamic practices making decisions about those very practices.
And he brings up a really important point here, Article 26 of the Indian Constitution. It specifically guarantees that religious groups have the right to manage their own affairs in matters of religion. So introducing non-Muslim members onto a board that's specifically tasked with overseeing Islamic endowments, that could be seen as a direct violation of that right.
Another red flag for a lot of people is the proposal to eliminate elections for Waqf board members and chairpersons. It's raising some serious concerns about democratic principles. These are institutions that are responsible for managing significant community assets, and taking away the element of electoral representation just doesn't seem right. It definitely begs the question, who gets to decide who leads and manages these boards, if not the community itself? This move could potentially open the door for appointments based on political favoritism, rather than the actual needs and interests of the Waqf and the people it serves.
And then there's the whole issue of Section 40 of the current Waqf Act. Now, from my understanding, this section basically gives Waqf boards the power to decide which properties fall under their jurisdiction. But guess what? This bill wants to get rid of it. So if that happens, the authority shifts to the government.
That's right. If they remove Section 40, it means the government gets to call the shots on what is and isn't a Waqf property. You can imagine the potential for delays, disputes, and even the outright rejection of legitimate Waqf properties if the government's assessment doesn't line up with the Waqf board's view.
The more we dig into this bill, the more it feels like they're trying to rewrite the rules of the game while it's already in progress. And there's another change that's causing a huge stir, and that's the removal of the Waqf by user clause. This is a long-standing tradition that basically says if a property has been consistently used as a mosque or a graveyard for a long time, it's recognized as Waqf, even if the paperwork isn't completely there. Now they want to do away with that, and Stalin is furious. He's saying it's like ripping out a tradition that's been around forever, and that the central government just doesn't care about the feelings of the Muslim community.
It's kind of like telling your grandma that her secret family recipe doesn't count because it wasn't written down in a fancy cookbook. These traditions and customs have deep roots. They're part of the fabric of the community. Removing this recognition based on how a property has actually been used for generations could have some serious repercussions.
And let's not forget the potential impact of the Limitation Act. Basically, older Waqf claims could get tossed out if they weren't filed within a certain time frame. Plus, there's the possibility that some trusts and charities might not even qualify as Waqf anymore.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to retroactively impose these strict bureaucratic requirements on historical practices, and that's where the real danger lies. Communities might not have had the resources or even the awareness to navigate these complex legal processes in the past. And narrowing the definition of what constitutes Waqf could exclude organizations that have been functioning as religious or charitable endowments for a long time.
Taking a broader view, it seems like Stalin sees this Waqf bill as part of a much larger pattern of what he considers to be betrayals by the central government. He's drawing connections to other controversial policies like the Citizenship Amendment Act, the push to make Hindi the dominant language, the financial squeeze on states that aren't run by the BJP, the whole NEET exam debate, and even the national education policy. He's basically saying this isn't an isolated incident, that there's a consistent agenda at play here.
It's a bold accusation that the BJP-led government is intentionally undermining the rights and interests of certain groups, particularly minorities, and those who don't align with their political ideology. By linking this Waqf bill to those other hot-button issues, he's painting a picture of a government that's not really interested in preserving India's unity and diversity, as he puts it.
Just to give everyone a little bit of background, the original Waqf Act goes all the way back to 1954. It's been amended a couple of times, in 1995 and 2013, so this isn't the first time these laws have been under the microscope. The current bill, the one that's causing all this trouble, was introduced in August of 2024. Right off the bat, the DMK and a bunch of other parties said, nope, not on board with this, and they pushed for it to be sent to the Joint Parliamentary Committee, the JPC, for further scrutiny.
And it's important to note that DMK MPs A. Raja and M. Abdullah did present their arguments and the Tamil Nadu government's concerns to the JPC in September of 2024. They laid out their case pretty clearly.
But despite that, the JPC went ahead and gave the bill the thumbs up, and then the Union Cabinet followed suit. So now we're at this point where the Tamil Nadu Assembly is digging in their heels and making a very public stand against it. Feels like a real showdown is brewing.
It's definitely escalating. Stalin is warning that this bill could be brought to Parliament very soon. So the fact that the Tamil Nadu Assembly is so united in its opposition carries a lot of weight. It could rally support from other groups across the country who share these concerns.
The analogy that comes to mind is a big, dramatic blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
Tamil Nadu is the hero standing up to this villainous bill, and there's this underlying sense of disbelief. Like, does the government really think they can just wave a magic wand and redraw property lines like that? Stalin is basically saying this bill is completely unnecessary and wrong on every level. He's arguing that it goes against court rulings, the Constitution, the whole point of Waqf. And his final message was pretty clear. He said, if this bill passes, Waqf institutions are finished.
It's a stark warning, and it brings us to the crux of the matter. This is a battle over power, about the balance between the central government and religious minority institutions. How much can the government intervene in their affairs, in how they manage their own endowments? The reaction in Tamil Nadu shows just how sensitive these issues are and the potential for serious consequences if this bill goes through.
So to sum it all up, the big issues with this Waqf Amendment bill are pretty clear. There's this huge fear that it's an attack on religious freedom, that the central government is trying to grab too much power, that it could lead to Waqf properties being taken away unjustly, and that it completely disregards long-standing traditions and practices.
Absolutely. The core arguments against this bill are about protecting the independence of Waqf institutions, ensuring they can continue to serve their communities according to their own principles and customs. And it really forces us to think about these fundamental questions. How do we balance the rights of religious groups with the role of the state? What are the core principles that should guide the management and protection of religious endowments in a diverse and complex society like India?
This whole situation really highlights the delicate tightrope walk that we have to navigate in a country like India, where you have so many different religious and legal frameworks interacting. It's something we all need to be thinking about, especially as this debate unfolds.